Good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome you to today's Protecting Your Profits call. I'm Zach Myers with the Center for Dairy Excellence. I appreciate you taking the time to join the webinar today. If you have any questions, you can use the chat box to type them in, or after I'm done with the presentation, you're certainly welcome to unmute yourself and ask that question verbally. My goal today is to provide an overview of current dairy market information and review risk management opportunities. And as usual, my little disclaimer that I say every month is this is all public information. And while I may express some opinions, these are certainly not necessarily recommendations. I changed the agenda up a little bit this month, and probably going forward, that little summary section, I dropped that off. It seemed like that was a little too redundant. So the couple of points that I typically make in those slides, I have built that into the presentation to speed things up a little bit and not be so redundant. So with that, we'll just move on into the presentation. At over 19 billion pounds, U.S. milk production was up a little over 2% year over year in July, after being up 2.9% in May. So the hot weather seems to be taking its toll on some of the major dairy states out west and the southwest, and reducing milk production there, and is slowing the growth rate compared to what we saw, of course, the major growth we experienced during the spring flush. Cow numbers are up to 9.5 million head compared to last July's 9.37 million. However, July is the second month in a row to experience a month over month reduction. So the national herd is down 3,000 cows from June's updated number of cows, and then it's down a total of 9,000 from May's herd size. The increased cow numbers were not solely responsible for the jump in milk production. The average U.S. cow produced 74.7 pounds of milk per day in June, which is about a half pound more than what she did last year. Pennsylvania cow numbers are down about 7,000 head from last year. Milk output per cow increased a slight 0.3% to 66.7 pounds per day, which is 0.2 of a pound more than what she produced last July. So, of course, this was not enough to keep total production across the state in a positive growth. PA milk production fell 1.2% to 855 million pounds, which is 10 million pounds less than last July's total. Butter, cheese, and powder stocks built through June and July. Butter stocks were up about 26 million pounds compared to last year, to over 397 million pounds. Cheese stocks were up about 58 million pounds to 1.45 billion pounds. And June powder stocks were up about 60 million pounds to 349 million pounds. At $1.64, July butter price is 12 cents higher than last year, and continues to be a discount compared to international prices, with the global dairy trade price at $2.55 and the EU price at $2.05. Cheese price is down 13 cents compared to last year, and is also a discount compared to global dairy trade at $1.82, and a slight discount compared to the EU at $1.70. At $1.25 per pound, the non-fat dry milk is 25 cents more than last year, and is lower than the global dairy trade price of $1.42, but 11 cents higher than the EU price of $1.14. Moving on to dairy production, product production. June butter production was up 11.6 million pounds compared to last May, to 161 million pounds. June cheese production was up 2.6 million pounds to 1.12 billion pounds. And June powder was also up. It was up considerably, 37 million pounds more compared to last year, to 185 million pounds. Butter disappearance is down 4% to 168 million pounds due to decreased domestic use. Butter exports were nearly double last year's total, but not the drop. But the drop in domestic use was more than the total amount that we actually export. At 474 million pounds, American style cheese disappearance is up a slight 3%, driven by increased domestic usage. Other styles cheeses were down a slight 2% to 702 million pounds due to mainly to decreased domestic usage and lower exports. Milk powder, non-fat dry milk plus skim milk powder disappearance was down 21% to 276 million pounds. And this was driven by a near threefold drop in domestic use that offset a 7% increase in exports. Class 3 milk futures for the next 12 months were basically flat compared to last month. On August 23rd, closing prices, the 12-month average was down 1 cent per hundredweight from this time last month to $17.29. The August class 3 was the low at 1603 and then jumps to 1745 in September, where it stays in the 1730 to 1750 range through next July. The current class 3 12-month average price is 77 cents more than the 5-year average, which is $16.52 per hundredweight. Class 4 is also showing signs of perhaps a little less volatility. Class 4 price for August was $15.75 and increases to the 1680s by next spring, where it levels out there through next July. The Class 4 12-month average increased to $16.39 a hundredweight, which is 4 cents more than the end of July. And the Class 4 average is $1.61 more than the 5-year average price of $14.78 a hundredweight. Moving on to exports. June exports were up 6% to over 199 metric tons. So exports are still, they continue to do really well. June export value was estimated at just over $670 million. And that's 15%. That's a 15% increase over June of last year. And the USDA, or the USDEC, released the information earlier this month on the January, or the first half of the year export, and so far in 2021 we're on pace to set an annual volume record if current export volumes hold. So far this through June, almost 1.2 million metric tons have been exported of milk solid equivalent dairy products. This is nearly 13% more than the first half of 2020. Value currently sits through the first half of the year at $3.8 billion. I think in my slides, if you got the copy of the slides, I had a comma there instead of a period. So you can make that note if you're following along with the slides. It's 3.8 billion, not 3,809 billion. So although that would be nice, it's a mistake on my part. That value is a little more than 13% more than the first half of 2020. And this is only 3% behind the first half of 2014's record pace, with the total value back then at 3.91. So depending on what exports do and what our prices do for the rest of the year, we have a potential of breaking the volume record and the value record in 2021 if things hold. So moving on to risk management, dairy margin coverage. The June margin was announced at $6.24 a hundredweight. This triggered a $3.26 per hundredweight indemnity at the highest $9.50 margin coverage. This is represents a payment of about $2,434 per 1 million pounds of production history enrolled in DMC up to that 5 million tier 1 cap. Annually so far, that represents about $12,773,000 per 1 million pounds of production history up to that 5 million cap. And with that 624 to the 326 indemnity, the net benefit so far for this year is $1.19. Excuse me. July margin will be announced next Tuesday after 3 p.m. when the ag prices report is released. One change was announced last week through a USDA press release that the change, there's making a change that's positive to dairy farmers in the feed cost equation. Instead of using an average alfalfa hay price, the hay price part of the equation will be just the supreme grade alfalfa price of the higher quality, which of course represents a more actual cost of what dairy farmers are paying for dairy quality hay. So this, based on a quick sort of a spot check I looked through a few months that triggered indemnities, this change will represent a reduction in the DMC margin of around 20 cents, which of course increases the indemnity payment by around 20 cents for the months where indemnity was triggered. And I looked at the other months that didn't trigger an indemnity, and this change won't be enough to cause an indemnity in a month that wasn't already triggered. And then also another good thing about this is it's retroactive to January 2020 and will be in place through the end of the current farm bill cycle, December 2023. So dairy farmers enrolled in 2020 or 2021, there's nothing they have to do to sign up for this. The payments will be automatic once the rules are finalized, which my understanding is the rules for DMC program, these changes are in the clearance stage. So hopefully in the next week or two, they'll be final. And as soon as everything's final and FSA has a chance to make the changes in their system, then those payments to make up for the difference of what's already been paid will go out to dairy farmers automatically. So just a quick look at projections. The projected feed cost for 2021 is supposed to be around, well, the average is around 11.51. So for the rest of the year, it's slightly feed costs will be slightly more than that average. And looking at the numbers there, and the average U.S. all milk trigger price is $21.01. Which means that, well, just take September for example. In order for September to not cause an indemnity, then the U.S. all milk price would have to be over $21.24. So it's not often that U.S. all milk price gets that high. So looking at these numbers, it's very likely that DMC is of course not done providing benefit for the rest of the year. That class 3 trigger price is based on subtracting $1.24 from the U.S. all milk price, which that $1.24 is just a 5-year average of the difference between class 3 and the U.S. all milk price through the end of 2020. So moving on to a couple of slides on dairy revenue protection. The dairy revenue protection prices shown here are based on August 20 closing prices. When I put the slides together Monday, the cold storage report came out, so dairy revenue protection wasn't offered. So the Friday prices are what was available to me when I looked at this. So the 100% class 3, 95% price protected floors can be set from a low of $16.53 in the fourth quarter of this year, or the first quarter of next year rather, and then up to $16.69 in that third quarter for an average cost of about 32 cents per hundredweight. And likewise for the 100% class 4, 95% price protected policies, floors can from a low of 1528 in the fourth quarter of this year up to a high of 1614 in the fourth quarter of next year. And these will cost on average about 27 cents a hundredweight. So these prices are slightly worse than last month's price, if you'll recall, but the price has come down just a little bit. So a little bit cheaper, but still volatility is keeping these premiums pretty high on class 3 and class 4 policies. So far for the 2022 crop year, 5 billion pounds of milk have been covered in the U.S. with 441 policies sold. 29 million pounds of milk covered in Pennsylvania with under 12 policies sold. So not a whole lot of uptake so far in Pennsylvania, but hopefully that will change as hopefully some volatility comes out of this market and those premiums come down. So this pandemic market volatility assistance program was announced with that DMC change last week. It's basically a reimbursement on class 1 payments caused by the reduction that was caused by the negative PPDs last year. This is an attempt to reimburse dairy farmers on some of that value, class 1 value they lost because of the negative PPD. So the USDA has promised $350 million to this program. They're reimbursed qualified dairy farmers for 80% of the revenue difference per month, and this is based on fluid milk sales for the second half of 2020. And payment rates will vary by region based on actual losses on pooled milk. So basically, it says that how I take that is that by a federal milk marketing order, that reimbursement rate's going to vary based on what that pooled order that lost in class 1 revenue. Unfortunately, they did put a production cap on this of 5 million pounds of annual production, or of course that would equate to 2.5 million for just one half of the year. So payments are going to be made through agreements with independent milk handlers and cooperatives. At this point, the USDA is in the process of contacting eligible handlers to notify of the program. Once funding agreement is made, the USDA has 60 days to distribute the funds to that handler or co-op. And then once the handler receives the funds, they have 30 days to distribute funds to eligible dairy farmers. So this program is administered by Agricultural Marketing Service. And again, like the retroactive payment on DMC alfalfa hay price, these payments will be automatic. Dairy farmers don't have to do anything to receive the money as long as their milk handler enters into agreement with the AMS. And with that, thank you. The next Protecting Your Profits webinar is Wednesday, September 22nd. At 12, and the webinar link is there. Of course, I'll be sending that out via email closer to the date. And if there's any questions, I'll certainly be happy to try to answer those. Feel free to type them in the chat box, or just unmute yourself and ask. I'll see no questions in the chat box and nobody unmuting. We'll end today's Protecting Your Profits webinar. Again, thank you for taking the time to join me today, and I look forward to speaking with you next month.